Namaste everyone. I'm Suresh Metagar, Assistant Professor of English, Government First Grade College, Dharwad. Today I would like to give a brief introduction to contemporary literary theory. So let me share the screen. So we know criticism means it is a kind of evaluation of text. It is an examination of any literary work. So it tries to classify, it tries to define the literary work, it tries to classify the literary work into different genres, and it tries to explain different aspects of a literary work. So totally criticism means examining a literary text. And till 19th century, most of the criticism was author-centric. What we call traditional criticism or classical criticism or criticism of humanism, it was either author-centric or it was revolved around the so-called universal values that a work of art is supposed to convey. But after First World War, there was a drastic change in the way Western people think, and there were many changes in the Western world. Because of that reason, people started thinking in a different way, what we call modernism and postmodernism. In postmodernism, everything is uncertain, and the same thing is affected to our theory and criticism also. Because of advancement and because of advancement in all aspects, people started questioning everything. They started questioning everything. That is why even they questioned the way literary criticism was done in Western world. So they started searching for meaning, they started searching for ideology, they started searching for gender discrimination, they started searching for exploitation in literary text. And so many things were asked in a literary text. So different approaches are there. Broadly, we classify these approaches into 4 categories. The first one is author-oriented approach. You know, this author-oriented approach is traditional approach. Traditional approach. In that, we have 2 subcategories. One is classicism and another is humanism of various kinds. Author-oriented approach is, it gives more importance to author. Whatever criticism is there, whatever evaluation of a text is there, they give more importance to the writer. What they analyze on the basis of writer's intention, writer's experience, writer's social conditions, political conditions, and so many things. The whole criticism was revolved around writer. So humanism, what we call humanism means what we call universal values or truth. Such kind of universal values were searched in a text, and those universal values were also again conveyed by the writer. So that is author-oriented approach. Next, we have an important approach, that is text or language-oriented approach. Text or language-oriented approach is very important because it changed the way Western people used to think. It gave more importance to language. Not only it gave more importance to language, but also it started, actually, it made other people to accept heterogeneity. Because in most of the traditional thinking, the whatever classical or whatever those so-called universal things were there, no, they were supposed to accepted by all the other people and all other part of the other section of the society. But this text or language oriented approaches questioned truth itself, reality itself only, and values themselves. So we have 4 more subcategories in this text or language oriented approaches. First one is formalism. Next one is practical and new criticism. Because I am going to deal with these 4 sections in detail. That is why I'm not going to explain now. Let us move to context oriented approach. Context-oriented approach means, as we have seen those two approaches. This approach depends on approach is, it is a way of analyzing text, a literary text. A literary text is analyzed on the basis of a different context. In context-oriented approaches, a literary text, when we judge, when we evaluate, when we examine that literary text, we examine on the basis of different contexts. For example, psychological context. First one is psychological context. Psychological context here is literary text is analyzed on the basis of psychological theories and psychoanalytical techniques, which they use to analyze the mind of the writer, mind of the reader, and mind of the society, and psychological, so many things of psychology, means the things which were concerned with mind. Then we have gender context. Gender context here is, again, the literary text is analyzed on the basis of gender. Gender context here is, the text is analyzed with women in mind. In feminism and lesbians in mind, in lesbian criticism, and gay people in mind in gay criticism. They analyze text on the basis, because what the general thinking is that most of the traditional texts or so-called texts which were produced, text or whatever that is produced by some sections, some a small section of the society, and which produced those texts as per their needs and satisfaction. So people feel that they were not given ample space in those texts. Such kind of things are analyzed in gender-based context. Means woman is discriminated, woman is degraded in the text in turn in society also. The most of the societies, male-dominated society, actually gives very less space to the women, lesbians, gay, and they think these people as inferior. And such kind of things are searched in a text. And why people think so, and whether they are naturally inferior or they were made inferior because of socialization by so-called dominant class of the society. Such kind of analysis are done in gender context. In gender criticism means feminism, lesbian criticism, and gay criticism. Next, we move to next contextual criticism, that is historical context. Here we have new historicism and cultural materialism. New historicism was there in America, and cultural materialism was there in England, and both are same. In new historicism, what happens is, in traditional approach, most of the history was analyzed and searched as it was written by the dominant class, I mean kings and their followers. But in new historicism, here culture, history, society, language, literature, all are analyzed together. All are analyzed together. And it is not a single history which speaks about the culture and language or literature of that society. Here, everything is considered. Even the culture of lower society and other texts, along with literary text in new historical criticism, along with literary text, other history texts and other texts which were available and other texts which were not available, and things which are presented in the text, historical text, and things which were neglected or ignored in the text. And considering all these things, one can understand the reality of that culture or literature or whatever. In new historicism, totally it is advanced Marxism. In Marxism, we think about socio-economic conditions. Here, they consider all ideologies, politics, literature, so-called culture, and everything. How those culture and ideologies shape the society, shape the language, shape the literature. As in literary criticism, that is in new historical criticism, we analyze how literature shaped society and how society shaped literature, and how all other aspects of history, politics, or other culture shaped literature, and how literature shaped other people, and how in literature how the other lower class are represented and higher classes are represented and different classes are represented, and how ideology played an important role in the shaping of either literature or culture. Such kind of things are analyzed in new historicism. Cultural materialism is also same thing. He called it as cultural materialism, as Marx called materialism. Cultural materialism, he analyzes culture. He gives more importance to the culture. Means culture is defined in various ways, and the so-called culture is always higher class culture is considered as culture, and lower class is considered class culture is considered as unculture. Ah, so such kind of things are analyzed from the text in these criticisms. We move to colonial context. Here also same colonial context. In Europe, most of the European countries colonized Asian, African, and Latin American countries. When they colonized these countries, they thought themselves superior, and they represented these people, Asians, Africans, and Latin Americans, as inferior in their writings, and their culture as inferior in their writings, whether it's a literary text or any other text. They consider themselves as the agents of God to civilize these third world countries, people. So such kind of, and the agony the colonial people, colonized people experienced under the colonizers were also presented in the literature that is written by these colonized countries writers. So such kind of literary texts analyzing whether it is from colonized writers or colonizer writers, the writers who are from Europe or writers who are from this Asia, Africa, or Latin America, in those texts, analyzing how culture, how the European culture and our native cultures, either it may be Asian culture or American culture, whatever, how these cultures are and people culture and the way of living, their language is presented in the language literature. So analyzing all these things and trying to find the truth, is the uh, aim of colonial criticism. Well, that is post-colonial, neo-colonial. We say it as neo-colonial because though we are freed from colonization, still, though we are freed from colonization, still we are mentally colonized, because whatever new, whatever advancement is there, that is nothing but imitating West. Still, Western people, with the help of media or with the help of other their so-called science, still they are actually enforcing their thoughts and their culture on other countries. So that is you understanding and analyzing these things in literature is neo-colonial criticism. Then we have socio-economic context. Socio-economic context is Marx theory. Marxism of various kinds are there in literary criticism. Marxism is one of the most influenced concept in Western world, not only in the world itself only. So Marx says literature, society, man, all are the products of socio-economic conditions. Economic condition influences society, and society influences economic conditions. On the basis of economic conditions, those people who have economic control over other people, economic control, they create all the rules, regulations, and whatever that is there. Even in literature also, literature is considered as an weapon to exploit the people, means brainwash the people. Literature is considered as an ideology in Marxism. So analyzing in such kind of things is Marxist criticism. Economy means those people who have economic power and those people who don't have economic power. how these people with power and without power are represented in literature, and literature favors those people who have economic power. Such kind of analysis, it is an advanced, actually it is analyzed in advanced way, how ideology, different things are there. So when we go in detail, we can see that one. Okay. Next, fourth approach, that is reader-oriented approach. Fourth approach is reader-oriented. Reader-oriented approach is here actually in traditional criticism, author was given more importance. In reader-oriented approaches, reader is given more importance. Reader reception, how reader receives the literature or how reader gives the meaning, such kind of things are analyzed. Means in reader oriented approaches, reader response theory or reader reception theory, what we call, in this, reader meaning is produced by the reader, reader's experience, reader's way of thinking. Means some a scholar says that there are as many meanings as there are as many readers are there in the world. So meaning depends upon the reader. Reader is given more space. That is why Roland Barthes has written an essay called Death of the Author. He says in that essay, death of the author, he's not concerned with the death of the author, but the birth of the reader. Means reader is given more space in this criticism. Reader also shapes or gives meaning, different meaning to the text. That is the main contention of this reader-oriented approach. Now, I would like to concentrate on this text or language-oriented criticism, because that is most important for literature students. Okay, so now first I would like to speak about formalism. Formalism is a different approach for the analysis of a text. In this approach, most of the reader, because as we know, till 19th century, most of the criticism was revolving around biohistorical. It was biohistorical, means it was revolving around the biography of the writer or historical conditions of the writer and how he has expressed it. That is why that kind of criticism is called expressive criticism. And those younger generation who were dissatisfied or who were not happy with that kind of criticism started thinking in a different way. So they actually completely neglected the writers, means almost ignored the writers, and gave more importance to the text. They gave more importance to the text. So in formalism, they say form and technique give the meaning, not the writer, or not the political influence of the writer, or not the economic conditions or social conditions of that writer or of that society. It is form, technique, and the language which is used systematically that gives meaning to the text. In formalism, actually we have Russian formalism and French formalism. Both are similar, almost similar. Russian formalism is important for us. In Russian formalism, actually it was began with the foundation of Russian Moscow Linguistic Circle by Roman Jakobson in 1915, and Viktor Slowacki was also the leader of that circle, and Boris Eichenbaum, Yuri Utanin, Boris Thomas Vesky, these are important members of that circle. And when after 1917 Russian Revolution, authorities actually closed this Moscow Linguistic Circle, and Roman Jakobson, the leader, moved to Prague, and he actually created one more linguistic circle, that is Prague Linguistic Circle, in 1926. In formalism, they give importance to the form and technique over content and the outside influences on the text. They looked for the specificity of literature as an autonomous verbal art. Means literature, they consider literature as independent from the writer or other external influences. They consider literature as a verbal art. In that art, if proper technique is used, that gives the meaning. If proper structure is there, that is the meaning. Structure and meaning cannot be separated. Structure is there. That's what they say. Later, the same concept influenced new critics also. Formalism refers to critical approaches that analyze, interpret the inherent features of a text. Formalism means it is a kind of analysis of a text where it analyzes the internal features of a text. The text which are there, the elements which are there in the text itself only. Not outside things, not the writer or not any other things. Only the things which are there in the text. Effective way, in an effective way, how it is produced. Means effective use of technique and form give meaning to the text. Then this approach reduces the importance of a text historical, biographical, and cultural context. Means almost they neglect historical, biographical, and cultural conditions which used to influence critic in those days. And formalists, another important contribution is they actually separated literary language from common language. They think literary language is very different from the common language. So important terms are there in formalism, which you may get in your NET examination to know. Literariness is first term, which was introduced by Roman Jacobson. Literariness, foregrounding, defamiliarization, all have similar meaning, but different words. Literariness means the quality of distinction, the unique quality of a language. He says, if a writer writes, when a writer writes a text, it becomes an unique language. That uniqueness itself is that unique quality of that text itself is literariness. Means common language, making common language uncommon and extraordinary, beautiful is there. No, that is the quality of a literariness. Only important means proper kind of technique and proper form and structure and proper use of words give literary quality to that text, and that literary quality is there. No, that is literariness. Then we have one more term, foregrounding. It was developed by John Mokrowski. Foregrounding is there. It is the foregrounding is a technique of using language in such a way that the language itself gets attention from other people. Automatically it gets attention because of the way it is used. Foregrounding is a systematic or effective use of language in a text. So then we have one more term called defamiliarization or estrangement, which was proposed by Victor Slowski. Defamiliarization means making familiar things unfamiliar or known things unknown with the help of technique and form and language. So when a writer writes about his personal experience or whatever things which are there in the world, he makes these things extraordinary or unknown to us, or he defamiliarizes these familiarized things with the help of his language, with the help of his technique, with the help of his form. So that is defamiliarization. Actually, they give less importance to the writer, but they're not completely neglected, or they don't speak anything about writer. Then we have two more terms called fabula, that means story, and sujet, that means plot, which were first used by Victor Slowski again. Here, Victor Slowski differentiate story and plot. Story is just a collection of events or chronological events, whereas plot is again systematic presentation of those incidents, as Aristotle defines. It is systematic arrangement of incidents. Systematic arrangement of incidents means effective use of language. When we use language effectively, that becomes plot. That becomes plot means that gets literary quality. That gives literary quality to the language. So this is about formalism. Next, we'll move to practical criticism. Practical criticism is actually it is a British phenomena, which was actually started by I.A. Richards when he experimented with his students of close reading. Close reading means Till the 19th century, actually, most of the poems, especially when he was teaching poems to undergraduate students, uh, he found that most of the students were not learning the language, but instead of language, instead of analyzing language, they were thinking about writer's intentions and feelings and summary and so on. So he wanted his students, actually his aim was to make students learn how to analyze the text itself only, language itself only. So he used to give separate passages to the students, unknown passages to the students to analyze. And in the same way, he wrote practical criticism, principles of literary criticism, and science and poetry. In these works, he has presented that one should not look for external influences, but one should go for close reading. Close reading means uh, meticulous, meticulous analysis of the language, that is words, images, symbols, whatever that are there in the text itself only. This practical criticism was mainly there for the poem, but later it was expanded to all the genres of literature. So important writers of this practical criticism are I. Richards himself was a pioneer, and he has written these three works. And William Emerson was his student, and he has written a book called Seven Types of Ambiguity, in which he speaks about multi meanings of literature or text. He speaks about multi meanings of a text. Means in the text there are multi meanings. If you concentrate on writer or writer's intention or universal values, you will be having only one meaning. If you read or analyze the text itself only, means whatever the things are there in the text itself only, you will get plenty of meanings. That is what there in the seven types of ambiguity. So practical criticism and new criticism are almost similar, and new criticism is American version of a practical criticism. Let us see new criticism. New criticism is again, it is a reaction against a traditional approach which was which was giving more importance to this writer and writer's personal experience, by his historical experience and so on. So it was again a reaction, and it is almost American version of practical criticism, or Russian formalism. Formalism, they are almost similar in different, with certain differences. Actually, what they do is they give more importance to close reading. Close reading means without thinking or without considering any external influences, whether it is writer's personal experience or his feelings or his intention or his socioeconomic background or whatever that historical background or political background. They don't consider all these things. They give more importance to the words, images, symbols, paradoxes, irony, how these play and give an important meaning, how these play an important role and give meaning to that text. They give more emphasis to close reading. And the structure and meaning, that's what I said in the formalism. Structure and meaning of a text are intimately connected, and they should not be separated. Structure, it is a structure which gives proper meaning to the text. In literature, according to new critics, it is structure which gives the proper meaning to the text. And structure and meaning cannot be separated. That is, and later I will speak about this. A poem should be treated as a poem, as an object in itself. Actually, that's what I said. Even new criticism was also concentrating on poem itself only. If you want to analyze poem, if you want to examine poem, you should think only about that poem. That is an independent entity. Not it is writer's poem, not it is society's poem, not it is poem is there for society or any other things. So poem should be considered as an independent entity. And even new critics also, like formalists, consider literature as a special kind of language. If you analyze that language, you will get meaning, according to new critics. So they deal with meanings and interactions of words, figures of speech, symbols, images, and such kind of things. Means these figures of speech, words, symbols, if you concentrate on, or if you attentively analyze these things, you will get proper meaning from that text. That is how new critics say. And then for them, actually, there is no distinction between any literary genre, or they neglect they hardly think about genres, whether it is novel or poem or epic or whatever. Only they consider language of that text. Once if you analyze the language of that text, meaning will automatically come. That is the thinking of live critics. They focused, actually focused attention was given to text. A text as a self-contained verbal organization. Text means it is a self-contained verbal organization. So only if you analyze systematically that verbal organization, you will get meaning. And important critics of this new criticism are John Crow Ransom. John Crow Ransom is the founder of New Criticism in America, because he wrote a volume of essay called The New Criticism in 1941, and this New Criticism is named after that title. And then we have Alan Tate, one more important writer of this new criticism. His Tension in Poetry, an essay which was also very influential. Then we have Clint Brooks, another critic. His important works are Well Rut Earn, Studies in the Structure of Poetry, and Modern Poetry and Poetry and Practice. These two works also contributed to the development or advancement of new criticism. Then we have one more writer called Robert Penn Warren. He founded the literary journal called Southern Review with Clint Brooks. In that review, actually, they discussed about new criticism and the way of analyzing text. Then important works of the Robert Penn Warren are An Approach to Literature. He wrote along with Brooks and John Tibet Pusher. And another work he has written with Clint Brooks is Understanding Poetry. Understanding Fiction is also he has written with Clint Brooks. Then we have two more writers who contributed to the advancement of new criticism, that is W.K. Wimsatt Jr. and Monroe C. Birdsley. They wrote an essay called The Intentional Fallacy in the Verbal Icon in 1946. In this essay, what they speak against in analyzing a text on the basis of intention of the writer. It is fallacy means mistake. It is a mistake to think about the writer's intention while analyzing a text. That is what they speak about in this text, in this essay. And important terms concerned with this new criticism. Affective fallacy. Wimsatt and Birdsley, they wrote another essay called Affective Fallacy. As we know, intentional fallacy means it is a mistake to think or consider about intention of the writer while analyzing a text. In affective fallacy means it is again mistake to analyze the text how on the basis of its effect or its psychological effect on the readers. Its psychological effect on the readers. Text psychological, if you consider text psychological effect or other moral effects on the reader, that is a mistake. You should not consider either reader or writer. Only text is the independent entity. So consider text and it will give different meanings. That's what they say in this essay. Then we have another term called tension, which was used by Alan Tate for the first time. Tension means oral quality of a poem. Oral quality of a poem. Tension, he claims, it is a balancing power. The tension among the different forces of that language. Image, symbols, paradoxes, irony. These are different forces in a language, in a poem. Those language create a kind of tension that balances and gives a meaning to the poem. That's what is tension according to Alan Tate. Then we have another term called heresy of paraphrase. It was used by Clint Brooks. Heresy of paraphrase means separating structure and meaning is a heresy of paraphrase. We should not separate structure from meaning. Proper structure gives proper meaning. Structure and meaning are integral part and they are one and the same. You cannot separate. If you separate, it is heresy of paraphrase. That's what Clint Brooks says. So let us move to structuralism. Structuralism is a general theory of culture and methodology that implies that elements of human culture must be understood by way of their relationship to a broader system. Structuralism is an important concept which changed the way of Western thinking. In structuralism, it is language, as we know, it is language-based criticism. What they say is structuralism is concerned with anthropology, culture, and literary criticism. In all these things, what they say is whatever that is there in the text, or whatever that is there in the culture, or whatever that is there in our human language, actually that is not a truth, but the broader system is there behind this. Means, for example, literary language is there, no? Literary language, now we people able to understand literary language only because we know the broader system of literature, literary conventions, how poems are written, whether it is in Canada or in English or in America or in Pakistan or in India. In all countries, poems means we express feelings. That convention, the expression of feelings, that convention is there, and those people know this convention can understand literature. So what they say is there is a broader system behind this literature. That broader system, if you understand that broader system, you will be able to analyze literature. In the same way, actually, the structuralism is mainly based on Ferdinand de Saussure's linguistics. In that linguistics, he says even in language also, language has a broader system. Human experiences and human behaviors are there. No, they are same. There is a broader system, and those human beings who understand that broader system use this language. Use this language because this language itself doesn't have fixed meaning. This language gets meaning only with the meaning, or we understand that language only when we know this broader system with local variations. So it is primarily based on the Ferdinand de Saussure's linguistic theories. Structuralism considered language as a system of signs and significations, the elements of which are understandable only in relation to each other and the system. See, language means, for structuralism, language means it is a system of signs, symbols. It is a system of symbols and significations. These symbols give signification, means meaning to the language that is referred to. If I say man, I get the meanings man with help of that symbol. But structuralists say that they are independent. They are not internally connected. They are separate and they are not fixed. We understand these things only because there is a broader system. We understand broader system. For example, when we say man, there is one more word called woman. When woman and man we compare with relation with woman only, man gets meaning. With relation with man only, woman gets meaning. If there is no woman, then there is no meaning for man, or man would have been had different meaning. So what they say is only with relation, binary opposition, relations or comparisons, these signs gets meaning. And to get that meaning, there is a broader system. On the basis of that system, we understand, on the basis of those conventions, we understand this language. So what they say is meaning is arbitrary. Meaning is arbitrary means it is not fixed. It depends. Meaning is arbitrary, it is not fixed, it depends on it is relative. Relative means it depends on comparison or similarities. When we compare whether it is a different or similar, then only the other thing get meaning. So that is why that's what say meaning is arbitrary. Then there is no one-to-one relation between a signifier and are arbitrary. That's what I said. There is no meaning. There is no relation between the word man and the body man. See, if the person who doesn't know the language, if you say him man, he doesn't understand this body. So there is no one-to-one relation between this word man and this body man. This understanding comes because there is a broader system, and all those in that system, we people understand that man means this body. Such, if you understand that broader system, you will be able to understand language. Then they challenged the notion that literary text reflected reality. Instead, text was constituted of linguistic conventions and situated among the other texts. So, and one more thing they challenged is literary text means it is reality, expression of society, what we call mirror of society, expression of society. It is not so. Literature means it is any text means it is situated among other texts. What they say is, for example, literature. You take any epics, Indian epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, or Greek epics, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, or Latin epics, or English epics. Wherever you, whatever the epics you take, though there was no relation at all for this Indian Mahabharata or Ramayana or Greek mythology epics, still they have similar conventions. Similarity, there are so many similarities between these epics, because the broader conventions and system was known to those people who whether it is orally produced or literally produced. So broader convention, with the understanding of the broader conventions only, they produced these texts. That is why what this is, there was already one text was there, and that text is another text which is produced is situated in that text, means there are so many similarities in those things. Those similarities are conventions of the broader system. Only with the help of those broader system we can understand this system, that is literature. When it comes to literature, if you want to understand literature, there are some literary conventions, broader literary system. For example, poem means expression of feelings, drama means expression of dialogue, and so on. Such kind of things are there. Those people who don't know a poem, those people who don't know drama, they don't understand literature. So one who understands this broader system which is there, then only they can evaluate literature. That is what a structuralism is. If you understand the structure, if you understand the structure behind the broader structure of this language or literature or culture, you will be able to analyze language or literature or culture. So I'm speaking about literary criticism, but structuralism is concerned with anthropology also, culture also. So that's why I said, if you understand this culture or language or literature, there is a broader system. If you understand that broader system, you will be able to analyze this system. Okay, important figures of structuralism are Claude Lévi-Strauss, who was an anthropologist who applied structuralism to anthropology, and later his concepts are also used for literature. Okay, he wrote Tropics in 1955. In that, he speaks about the structure of language, structure of means that the broader structure of human beings or culture. Next, we have Roman Jakobson. Roman Jakobson wrote a work called Functions of Language, in which he speaks about structure. Without that broader structure, he says, without that broader structure, it is very difficult to understand literature. So then we have Northrop Frye, who wrote in Anatomy of Criticism, the archetypal literary criticism. Archetypal criticism, he speaks about how myths are similar everywhere. It means there is a broader system behind these things. Then we have Jonathan Culler, who tried to write structuralist poetics. Structuralist poetics means rules and regulations, or what we have rules and regulations of understanding literature. If you understand rules, regulations which are already there in the broader system, you will be able to analyze literature. So that is what he has written in structuralist poetics. Then we have Roland Barthes, Introduction to the Structural Analysis of Narratives. Roland Barthes is actually a structuralist, as well as he becomes a post-structuralist later. In 1966, he has written an Introduction to the Structural Analysis of Narratives. It has also contributed to the development of structuralism. And important terms which are there in this structuralism, the concept of structuralism, are long and parole. Long and parole, these are two words which are given by Saussure, Ferdinand de Saussure. Long means this broader structure of language. Parole means what we speak, words, or what we write. So long means the broader structure of language. Parole means what we speak or what we write. These words, utterances. Then other terms are there. Sign, that is signifier and signified. These terms are also given by Ferdinand de Saussure. He says language is the system of signs. Sign Then signifier is there. Signifier means what we utter, word, or what we write. That is signifier. And signifier means the signifier referred to. That is man is man. The word man or whatever the sound is signifier, and this body is signified. That is concept. Concept. The word mobile is signifier, and this mobile is signified. So then we have synchronic and diachronic. These terms are also used by Ferdinand de Saussure himself. Ferdinand de Saussure says one should not analyze language diachronically. Diachronically means historically, because language continuously keeps changing, depends on that system. So synchronically, if you understand a language synchronically means at a single time in a particular period, you will be able to understand that language, because that system only one those people who are living in that period can understand the system that is present in that area in that period. So he prefers synchronic analysis of language. Then we have another concept called term called binary oppositions. Binary opposition means what they say is language gives meaning only with the help of binary oppositions. Binary oppositions. Binary oppositions means, for example, man and woman, girl and boy, such kind of things. So many things are there. Sun and moon. Only sun gets meaning. The word sun gets meaning only when you refer to man. Oh, sorry, moon. Means binary oppositions are there continuously. The binary oppositions are there. With the binary opposition, man gets meaning only in relation to woman. Such kind of binary opposition give meaning to the language. That's what they say. Then let us move to first structuralism. That is a very important concept which changed the Western thinking completely. This thing changed Western thinking completely, and it made a revolution in the academic section of the world. Actually, it is post-structuralism is a late 20th century movement. Means it started in 1970s. As the name itself suggests, it builds on structuralism and rejects its fixity. Means whatever structuralist features are there, they actually accept certain structuralist features like a sign and signifier and signified, but they say that there is no permanent signified or there is no fixed structure to give fixed meaning to a language or literature. In deconstruction is an approach to analyze, or it is an approach to analyze text, and it is an attempt to understand the meaning of a text. Okay, but understanding meaning, what they find is there is no fixed meaning for any language or culture or literature. There is no fixed meaning. Meaning keeps on shifting. Actually, they emphasize on open-endedness, undecidability. You cannot decide this is fixed meaning, because our language, our culture, our way of living, everything is conditioned. It is conditioned by particular time. And those conditions keep on changing. Those conditions keep on changing, so there is no fixed meaning to either language or culture or literature. I'm speaking about culture also because cultural study is also part of our literary theory. So that is why I'm continuously using culture, language, and society. So only when we speak about literature, literary criticism, what the deconstruction says is there is no fixed meaning for any text. There is no fixed meaning for any text, and these signs, the play of signs keeps on changing. They keep moving. That's what he says. Derrida says, text is a gas. What is there in the text? It's a gas. It is gas. Can you fix gas? No, it keeps on moving. It keeps on moving. So meaning of text is also like gas. It keeps on moving, keeps on moving. So, like structuralist deconstruction too is gives importance to the idea of text. Means it is also text based or language based. It is also language based analysis of a text. Text here I am using in the sense of language, because the most of the structuralist and the deconstructionists use text as a language. language-based analysis of a text. When you analyze language, you don't find any fixed meaning. That's what deconstructionist says. It is impossible to draw a clear line between reality and representation expression because feelings and experiences are expressed or are represented through the language. What they say is it is impossible to draw a clear line between reality and expression. Reality, which is reality and which is expression, because whatever we express, our feelings and experiences are represented through language, whether it is expressed language or unexpressed language. Because what they say is language is not permanent and language is also conditioned. Conditioned means it is constructed by certain elements of that society of that time, and that construction keeps on changing. That conditioning keeps on changing means language, when language itself is conditioned by certain things of that society, then automatically we who grow up with the help of that language, which comes unknowingly from our parents to us, we cannot say which is reality, which is not expression, because there is no fixed meaning, there is no fixed reality, there is no fixed truth. Nothing is truth. Everything is arbitrary, and it is product of language. It is product of language. That's what they say. Then text or language is always in a state of flux with no final meaning possible. That's what say. There is no final meaning. It is always in a flux means it keeps on moving. Deconstruction affirms notions of relativity and negate the reality. Means deconstruction says meanings are possible only when you relate to others, and when you relate to other situations, that meaning changes. That is, there is no reality at all. They negate the reality. And Derrida is the founder of this concept called reconstruction. He wrote it in his French work called Grammatology in 1967, and it was translated into English by Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak in 1976. Just I would like to concentrate on this work because it is very important. In this book, Derrida examines Rousseau's Confessions, where Rousseau says that writing a dangerous supplement in addition to the natural resource of speech. What Rousseau says is writing is a dangerous supplement in addition to the natural resource of speech. And Derrida critics that one, says that speech is incomplete and writing is complete. Writing completes. As Rousseau says, writing is a supplement. So if it is supplement, speech is incomplete. So writing completes. That's what Derrida says. And Derrida examines Saussure's ideas on language also. In this book, he examines Saussure's ideas of language, and Saussure says that spoken form alone constitutes the subject. Spoken language alone is the subject. Written language is not subject, object, according to Saussure, Ferdinand de Saussure. And according to Saussure, speech, that is presence, speech is present before us, is privileged over the absence writing. What he says, actually, most of the writers give more first preference to speech over the writing. Speech is considered as presence because it is there before us. Writing is not there before us. So, what Derrida says is, writing destroys the idea of a pure self-presence. Pure self-presence means the presence, what we call voice means speech means truth, authority. So someone is speaking, I listen to him and I accept that one, or it is an authority, it is considered the authority. But writing destroys that authority. Writing destroys that pure presence, that presence of that authority or whatever that is. Writing destroys. This idea actually helped Marxist, feminists, and so many postmodern writers or critics who used this idea to destroy established authority, which had been exploiting the major part of the society. So he critiques phonocentrism that leads to logocentrism. These two words, phonocentrism and logocentrism. Phonocentrism means giving more importance to sound, that is words or speech, That leads to logocentrism. Logocentrism means, logo in Greek means word or truth or fixed meaning. So phono, if you give importance to sound, the whatever we speak, and we believe it and we consider it as truth, that leads to logocentrism. But it is not truth. There is no truth at all. According to Derrida, there is no truth at all. It is always relative. Truth is always relative. Reality is always relative. There is no reality. There is no truth. Only play of science. Only play of science. They give different meaning in different situations to different field. For him, writing means it is thinking pictures. Right? He says writing was there before our perception also, which was there in the form of pictures. That's what he uses the word picto, ideo, phonographic. Picture comes, then idea comes, then words, phono, sound comes, then graphic. So writing in the sense of a traces exists always already before perception, and its present alone is what we understand as speech. What he says is, writing was always there. It was existed in the form of traces. He uses the word traces. Traces means the absences. The absences means, for example, when I say man, the absence of woman, it was the picture. Absence of woman was always there in my mind. If there was no woman at all in this world, I never thought of man. The word man, because when I say sorrow, happiness will be there in my mind when I say sorrow, because if there is no happiness at all, there is no meaning to the sorrow. So when I say sorrow or happiness, the other absence, that trace will be there in our mind as picture, and that picture is the first writing according to Derrida. So that's what he calls traces. Traces are always there in the mind. And then Derrida says there is no final signified, there is no final meaning or final concept. They keep on changing. He uses the word dissemination, means is the state of perpetually unfulfilled meaning, means permanently unfulfilled meaning. There is no fixed meaning at all for anything. The meaning keeps on changing as per need of the situation, as per need of the conditions, as per need of the people. Means these meanings are part of language, and that language is conditioned by the that at particular time, and it keeps on changing, keeps on. It is just like gas. That's what he says. Now let us see the important writers of deconstruction. We call some writers from LA school. Faldman. Faldman is a very important writer of deconstruction. He has written works called Criticism and Crisis in 1967, an essay, and in that he speaks about literature as nothing. Literature means nothing, language means nothing, nothing means there is no meaning. Meaning comes only at a specific time to that specific person, and it changes again. That person, if that person reads the same work after 5 years, that meaning changes because he is conditioned again. Language is conditioned again. Language changes continuously. There is no fixed meaning for him. So then we have Hillis Miller. Hillis Miller. He's also an important writer. He has written a work called The Critic as Host. It was actually replied to M.H. Abraham's Deconstructive Angel. M.H. Abraham had written an essay called Deconstructive Angel, criticizing these deconstructionists. So Hillis Miller defends deconstruction in that The Critic as a Host. And we have Roland Barthes, who was structuralist. Later he changed, he turned post-structuralist. He has written work called S. Barchet in 1970 and Mythologies in 1972, The Pleasure of the Text in 1975. In that Pleasure of Text, he speaks specifically that text gives pleasure or meaning only when it is diverse, only when there is no fixed meaning. So we have one more writer called Harold Bloom. He has written a work called A Map of Misreading. In this, we come across a famous line called "Every reading is misreading." So every reading is misreading, that Harold Bloom says. Then one more person is there, Jeffrey Hartman. There are so many people, and just I'm speaking about important writers. Jeffrey Hartman, The Fate of Reading in 1975, Criticism in Wilderness in 1980. Then one more writer, that is last writer, is Last important writer is Barbara Johnson. He has written a work called The Critical Difference in 1980. These are important writers who have contributed to the development of deconstruction. Then important terms that we have in deconstruction. First one is difference. Derrida uses this word difference, French word, intentionally because difference means both to differ and to differ. First differ means different from. It is different from. Man is different from woman. This second is differ is postponing. Postponing means keep on changing. The meaning of a word or a text comes only this word is different, this sign is different from other sign, this word is different from other word, and that meaning keeps on shifting, keeps on changing. Even after comparison also, even after relating also, the meaning next changes after some time, or it keeps on changing continuously. That's what he says. Then we have trace. That's what I already explained. Trace means absence. Trace means absence means when we say one word, hero. Hero means the absence that is will be there in our mind. That is trace. That is common people. Hero is one, and common people are other. That common people will be there in our mind. Only one hero is there, then there is no meaning for hero, and there is no trace. So that trace will be always there in our mind when we use language. And supplement means addition. That's what I spoke about when I was discussing about Rousseau's Confessions. And Confession, Rousseau says writing is a supplement. Supplement, it completes speech, incomplete speech, and that's what Derrida says. So this is about literary criticism, contemporary literary criticism. Actually, I'm not speaking about this context-based criticism. Already I have explained for certain extent. I'm not going in detail of those concepts. So I'm ending my presentation here only. Thank you.